Here's the deal, everyone. You've got Mashi Scanlan, Denis Stranjak here, and we are answering any and all of your questions, professional, personal, whatever you want. Marketing would be really good, actually.
That'd
But
be
any
great.
of
Yeah.
those questions, you can submit them at htdpod.com. We've got another question here, Denis. Denis, I'm actually surprised. We've gotten a good amount of questions
Me
for the
too.
old
And a lot of like
HTD pod.
professional career stuff. Like you're right. We are both, I would consider us both marketing SMEs, right? Subject matter experts.
Mhm.
But there's not like, what's a good multi-channel media mix for my none of
Mm-mm,
that stuff,
mm-mm.
right? Like
Yeah, it's really been and I think this belies a lot of what happens in the workplace, which is there's a lot of different kind of cultural issues with how we deal with advancement and growth within the
hmm
workspace, and that's what we're seeing a lot of here.
for
So
sure.
part and parcel with that, we have a question saying, I'm currently in a job I like enough, but I feel I've hit the ceiling advancement wise. I'm at 90K and trying to interview for jobs that would take me in a more senior role, but I never finished my bachelor's and the positions I'm interested in want an MBA. Should I try to get an MBA or start my own company? I'm a customer success manager at a SaaS company, but I have a lot of experience in web agencies and I feel I could run my own web agency slash freelance. Footnote, for those who don't know, SaaS is software as a service. I didn't know
Yep.
that until a few years ago. But that's what a SaaS company is. So, Denis, what say you to our erstwhile
So
applicant
this
question here?
I found myself in a situation not that dissimilar to this, at least in some capacities, when I first started working with you, Mashi. So
Mm-hmm.
I did my undergraduate degree in radiology. I was working as a radiologist, but I had this like rinky-dink YouTube channel on the side, and I met John and Mashi at a convention. We got to talking, we got on really well, and then I pitched them with James on this idea that we do the marketing for this events company that they were like spinning up at the time, and they were like, "That sounds good," and you guys hired us. And I remember sitting there thinking, and I'd applied for two master's programs at the time. I'd applied for a master's in nuclear medicine, and I'd applied for a
Wow.
master's in digital marketing strategy.
So basically
And
the same master's program,
very,
two
very
different
much the same,
universities. Yeah.
angle, right?
Okay. Yeah. Mhm.
And I used my work with you guys as like a bona fide to apply for that digital marketing master's, right? And I was like, okay, here we go. And I was like, well, we'll see what happens. We'll see where I get accepted, and that'll help me make a decision. Got accepted to both, and I was like, okay, I have to make a call here. That's tricky. And I decided to do the digital marketing masters. And I don't know if you remember this. I didn't tell you at the time.
Oh, I
I was doing
remember.
I was doing it part time at nights, 6 to 9 p.m., 2 days a week, over 2 years. And because I felt I was like, okay, look, I've gone out on a limb here. I've departed the industry I was working in, and these guys have hired me on a risk, right? And I was like,
Mhm.
if this doesn't pan out in a year, I'll have a year gap in my resume as a radiologist and no formal qualification in marketing. So I was like, I want to hedge. I want to do this master's and do it as a hedge in case this job doesn't pan out, so I can stay in this industry, right? Which I think was a phenomenally, astute and wise move, an uncharacteristically responsible thing for me to do at the time. Um, but I did that, and it meant that later on, then I'm now an adjunct professor at Trinity. I teach that program. I also teach some MBA classes as well, which is interesting, and relevant here. But I've run into this situation before where I'm found myself in an industry where I'm like, I don't actually have the on paper qualifications here. I need to catch up with that, which is not dissimilar to this. But the question I think here really boils down to, should I try to, they've clearly identified this MBA as a ceiling, right? Or maybe an
Yep.
equivalent
Mhm.
MSc, but some kind of master's degree as a ceiling to their advancement. And the question is if they think they can skirt that ceiling by going out on their own. And the only real like criterion there is what's your risk appetite, basically.
Tolerance
Right?
of
That's kind
risk.
of
That's
all
exactly
it
what it
boils
is.
down to.
Yeah. Um, I think that there's a larger discussion here about the value of university education and advanced education. I think they're great on paper. I think once you've worked a year or two in your industry, they're not worth the paper they're printed on, much less in the US, the massive amount of
Well, yeah, actually,
bills you
the
have to
average
pay.
undergraduate degree in the States, to be fair, costs just under $100,000. And that is not the case in Ireland at
Yes.
all. So,
I mean, a free education, you're a fool to not take that, in my opinion. But
well, nowhere are MBA levels things free. This will, no
right.
matter where they are, this will still cost them tens of thousands of dollars. There's no way around that.
So in my mind, and I have done and I continue to do a lot of hiring here at Card Shop Live for Channel Fireball. Historically, I was the gateway with which, all hires came through. And so I've reviewed, I dare say, hundreds, if not thousands of resumes, and I've done definitely hundreds of interviews. I do not buy into kind of what an education is, but I don't care what your bachelor's is. I don't care what your master's is, because I want to know what your work experience is, and I want to know what that looks like, and because that's just way more important, right? Now, that's very industry specific, so let's disregard that for a second.
Well,
In my
I think the
mind,
real problem is if you get 800 resumes, you need some criteria to turn 800 into 30, right?
mhm,
And
mhm.
often having an MBA or a relevant master of some kind or some degree of education is an easy way to cut down that list fast. Is it the
I
best
think
way to
relevant
hire
work
people?
experience. You could do relevant work experience. It takes more. The thing
That's
is,
way more effort.
like all things, though, you're going to get better results if you put more effort into it, right? I mean,
I'm not saying
yes, you
it's
could.
I'm not saying it's the best possible way to hire. I agree, taking a much more individualistic approach probably is. And I also,
Mm,
to credit, I do think you learn a lot of valuable stuff in a master's program. You do need a blend though. A blend of having formal education and industry experience is the sweet spot, which is the position this person will find themselves in. Which is why so many companies will, and if this is something your company is open to, you should definitely try to lean into this. Will help you finance you doing an MBA to like foster your growth. Usually there is
absolutely.
a caveat afterwards where you can't leave the company for like 18 months afterwards. So, just, get them to
Yeah.
pay for the degree and bounce.
Who
Uh,
would do that, Dennis? Who would support? Who would be supported by a company and then just leave them right away when they got their masters?
who can truly say? Like 3 years later. I don't know. I don't know. You better not be pointing that at me.
I'm
I
not.
ain't
There's
catching that
someone
stuff.
else who got a master's while they were working with
I
with.
remember. I remember.
And I was like, wait a minute, I'm being underpaid. I have a master's degree now. It's like, but you got that master's degree while you were working with us, and we
Look,
helped
them's the
you.
breaks, man. He can't win everyone. But I do think really it boils down to risk appetite here. There's this
Mm.
appeal to like starting your own agency, doing freelance work, and that offers a lot of flexibility, but it also offers a lot more responsibility and stress. And it depends on what your personal life is like, how stable that is, where you are in your career, whether you think that's the right move for you. And I know you have always valued, Mashi, and correct me if I'm wrong here, being in that sort of in the driver's seat more than being part of a cog in a larger machine.
I think, look, here's the nuts and bolts of it from my perspective. Here's the deal. Whatever industry we're working in, you hopefully you are specialized in that industry and you become an expert and you understand that industry. And that's why you're in that industry. So my hope is if you understand where you're at, you know what moves to make there to make yourself successful. When we blow that up a little bit more, we go, there's no one who knows you as well as you. And so the real question is, do you want to bet on yourself? Me, if I can create the situation that I want, that I feel successful in, I'm going to bet on myself 100% of the time. I would much rather do that. I'd much rather bet on myself. And when I say myself, there's a team here, John, Ryan, like key
But you're not
people,
carrying
but
the
in
buckets
general,
alone. I get it. Yeah.
right. I want to bet on myself. And I think that's a safer, honestly. And I know this is going to be weird. Maybe this is the entrepreneur in me talking. I think betting on yourself is better than betting on company X, where you have no guidance. They are in your industry, they're employing your expertise, but you're not guiding the ship. So that expertise, by definition, is limited to whatever your decision-making capacity is. So do you want to bet on yourself and take that risk? Or do you want to bet on random Now, I realize W-2 probably doesn't transfer to Europe, but do you want to bet on random employee job where you're going to be a cog in the machine? And yes, you will determine what's happening in your sphere of influence, but unless your sphere of influence is the CEO level, you're not really guiding the ship. And you're just hoping they know what to do. So
I
for
don't I
me,
don't know if I don't know
I'm
if I
betting on
agree with that,
myself.
dude. I understand. I don't actually. I agree with everything you said, but I think there's an important factor there, which is what's going on in your personal life. And look,
Sure.
there's two things here. One, like if you're, you know, getting married, you want to start a family, you're saving up to buy a place or something like that, the additional stability offered by having a traditional employment relationship is hard to undervalue, right? That being said, I don't think a person in that position writes this kind of question at htdpod.com, right?
Yeah.
This person has itchy feet, and that's not bad. It
Mhm.
just means that it's one of those things where this feels like a question where they've kind of made up what they want to do in their head, and they want someone to tell them that it's an okay idea, and it is an okay idea.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's better than okay because just the way this question's written, the average, and I don't know what corporate culture is like across countries very much, but I was in the corporate, corporate environment when I was here in the US when I was much younger. And the idea was you always want upward mobility. Doesn't matter, more pay, more power, move up, 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 up. Like somehow, promotion and management is the key to success in life. It's not. Being happy in your job. And in this case, with this individual, I think having the self-awareness to know I've hit the top. This is it. 90K is where I top out. I've looked around. I need to do X, Y, and Z to advance beyond this. I think these are all very, very good, self-aware critiques and understanding of where you are at in your industry and how you are placed. Then going on to say, I think I have the expertise to go it alone. What Dennis is saying is correct. If you are young, no question, bet on yourself right here. You can always start back up. You can always pick up the pieces if it falls apart and continue on. If you have a family, if you have dependents, if you have a partner, talk to them. That doesn't mean you can't do it. That doesn't mean you don't do it. It means you go have a serious conversation with your husband, your wife, your partner, whatever it is, and express to them how you feel and what you want to try.
I do think what you said is a
90,000.
little bit of a trap, though. I think it is very, very possible and relatively common to push yourself into a role that gives you more responsibility and pays you sometimes even a lot more money that makes you less happy, right?
Yes, don't
There's
do
a
it.
there's a phrase where I come from that my father often said to me growing up, which was no matter how rich a man is, he can't eat 2 loaves of bread a day. First of all, bet I can 100% eat 2 loaves of bread a day. Second of all, it is
Not
true though.
anymore.
Probably not anymore. No. More money doesn't always make you happier. It's hard. I know, and it's powerful because that's sentence to sound simultaneously obvious and also contradictory, right? But the idea that the next thing, and I'm chronic for this too, and I'm sure you're the same. As soon as I get something, I'm like, cool, what's next? What's next? What's next? And as I grow up, something I'm trying to struggle with is try to sit with like maybe this is good. Maybe this portion of my life is stable and there's other
Yeah.
parts I want to work on, right? That being said, again, I think by writing this question, you have self-selected yourself out of that group already.
Well, I think at the point when you're getting your resume out there and you're looking at
Right.
school programs, you're not happy or satisfied with the position you have right now.
Your mind
There's
is made up that
nothing
you want to do
wrong.
something, you're just not sure how, right?
Yeah, and I also think like the approach that this question takes shows that you are ready for more, And so 90,000, and here's the other part of this that's so freaking huge. And this is really what I would do is, you know, Gary Vee has a saying, your 9 to 5 pays the bills and your 5 to 9 builds your dreams. You don't need to leave
This is
this
what I was about to
job
say.
to start your company. Okay. And you shouldn't. What you should do is evaluate this 90,000 a year job. If you do not have prospects or growth with it or promotion, stop working 10-hour days, work 8-hour days, do your job and nothing more, because all you're going to do is be more productive for no return. And I say this as a manager and partial owner of the company I
Right.
work at. And this is what I would want from my employees. Once you're topped out, work your 8 hours, do your job, and do it conscientiously. Do not let balls drop. Do not check out. Do your job, but don't do more. Punch your 8-hour time clock or whatever it is. I mean, 90,000 a year, they may expect a little bit more, but don't stop putting in extra time and put all that extra energy into your new project. Is it a lot of time? Yes. Is it going to be long hours? Yes. But you get the stability of your current job. And once the new gig takes off, you can let go. Like monkeys, man. You don't let go of one branch until the next branch is firmly in grasp. And you have the ability to do that here. That's what I would do.
I think I agree. I think that's the move.
Yeah,
I think now, obviously, like like NDAs and non-compete clauses notwithstanding, assuming all that's fine, which working for SaaS companies probably is okay. I think that is the move, and I think that'll give you. And here's the thing: you'll know in 2 months if that's the kind of thing you want to do. Getting a little bit of a taste of like building your own website, trying to reach out, and trying to get clients. If you'll know if you're like once you land that first gig, you'll be like, if you're like, oh yes, all right, let's go. Maybe that is the path for
sure.
you. If it's demoralizing and you hate it, maybe go back into those MBA programs and maybe that could be. But I think this is a low risk way, like Mashi said, to dip your toe in it and see if it's for you. And you don't have to make a blind leap of faith. You can take a little bit of a bath first for sure.
Yes, and the key is when you've topped out, if you don't have prospects for growth or promotion, stop pushing as hard. I really do mean that. Like work
Mhm.
your job and work no more. There's nothing wrong with that. There's this huge culture of always having to put 110% in and doing the extra stuff and going the extra mile. And one, I think that's unhealthy and dangerous. Two, you should be able to earn your promotions without having to do all that BS, but that's not human nature. And even as managers, we like people who are more committed, who are all in, who are true believers. I get it. I fall victim to that myself. But once you've established that you've hit the ceiling, it is time to pull back on that, to focus on yourself, to get more me time. And if me time in this case means developing your own agency, here's the deal. That's exactly what you need to do. So go for it. I hope start the agency. If it's a success, please let us know. I would love a follow-up on this one.
Follow
Wouldn't
up,
you love
yeah,
to
yeah,
hear
for
how this?
sure.
Yeah, I would love to know how this goes. But I think just from the way this question is written, I think it's what you kind of want to do. And I do think it's a good idea. And I would take the chance. Bet on yourself. I'm willing to bet on you. I don't even know you. So bet on yourself. That's what I say, baby.